The question still remains, can the Bills get to 6-6? That's really the primary thing on my mind. Nothing this past week went out of the ordinary, really. It may have been wrinkled a bit today, which we will talk about. But the question remains, can the Bills at 3-5 win 3 out of their next 4 games and get to 6-6? With a backup quarterback, another backup quarterback maybe, and then maybe EJ Manuel. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, the game against the Saints, that's pretty much what we expected, right? I said 34-20, 35-17. Same thing almost. It kind of sucked because, A, they lost, and it still sucks to watch them lose, but they were competitive for the first, 25 minutes. And they never quit. There's a lot of fight in them that was encouraging to see. They're not ready for that type of game. They're not ready to go on the road in a dangerous type of environment that the Superdome can be, especially now post-Katrina and all things like that, and win that game against an elite quarterback, a Super Bowl MVP winning quarterback, like I said, on the road with their backup quarterback. It's a tall task. The fact that it was 7-7 at one point was encouraging. I mean, the first play, you thought it was over already. After the first play, it felt like they were down by 30 already. But they got out of that. And it was, eventually 7-7. They were competing with the Saints. It was, 14-10, right? 14-10 before... Was it 14-10 with, 4 minutes left in the half? Might even been 10-7. Was it 10-7? I can't remember. And I apologize for that. But for some reason, the Bills, they were there. They were there, and then all of a sudden in the last 4 minutes of the half, they fall apart, and the Saints go into the half with a 21-10 lead, and they never really looked back. So they never did. They didn't allow 21 points, so they never looked back. What was I impressed with? Thad Lewis's toughness, first of all, to get back in the game. Apparently he had the wind knocked out of him, but he obviously has a rib injury because they brought it up today, and he took a shot straight to the ribs. He took some hard hits. But I was impressed by his toughness. Fred Jackson ran the ball pretty well early on, but then ended up with nothing. He had about 40 yards in the first quarter, and then that was pretty much it for him. Bills were just rearing back and throwing all the time, and you know what? It was working a lot to a point. They found Graham deep for the touchdown. They got called back by that phantom penalty. Goodwin got open a couple times. Johnson was playing hobble, but he was open and making catches. Robert Woods was kind of invisible, but Scott Chandler was there. I mean, they certainly didn't have that big of an issue in the passing game, considering the fact that they were playing Thad Lewis, who is pretty much just giving us the same game every time he goes out there. 20 of 30, 200 and some odd yards, touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns, interception, maybe a fumble. It's the same thing. He's done it 3 games in a row now. That said, they've shown that they can win with him. They beat the Dolphins on the road. They should have, in my opinion, beat the Bengals, but they didn't. Like I said, I don't think they're ready for that Saints Super Bowl. They're playing a Super Bowl contender on the road. I don't think they're just not ready for it. But this week the Chiefs come to town. The undefeated Chiefs. Now, first of all, it's a whiteout on Sunday, so if you're going to the game, make sure you wear all white. They're asking for it. I mean, the last time we did it was against the Jets, so that didn't work out. Yeah, that was terrible. But let's do it again this week. We're going to try to beat the Chiefs. The only concern is that a lot of people think it's doable. And granted, it is. I agree that it is. It just seems like so many people are on this thought that, yeah, we're going to beat them. that I could see the Bills coming out and just getting killed because things like that happen. We'll find out if they're ready for Andy Reid and his new Chiefs team on Sunday, but the primary question is not whether the Bills can stop Jamal Charles and get pressure on Alex Smith. It's who's going to play quarterback for the Bills. Because today came up and we find out that Thad Lewis has got the flu and he's got a rib contusion, so he's 50-50. Assuming that he gets over this flu, I think he's going to play because a rib contusion is playable. And considering how tough he is, I think he'll stick it out. He just has to come to practice and show that he's ready to go. But nonetheless, Marrone saying he's 50-50 is not encouraging. EJ returned to practice today, but he's not going to play this week, hopefully by next week. But let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. Back to Thad Lewis. I think the Bills need him to play to win, which sounds ridiculous. It would have sounded ridiculous 3 weeks ago. The Bills need Thad Lewis in the game in order to beat the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. It still sounds ridiculous. They're not going to win the game with Jeff Tuel. They're not going to win the game with Matt Flynn, who's been here for 2.5 weeks. It's just not. It's not going to happen. If they have to go in the game, the Bills are. It's going to be an uphill battle right from the opening kickoff, and I think they will struggle immensely offensively, especially if Spiller doesn't play. He practiced today, but Spiller seemed so optimistic about playing last week that he was like, "Yeah, I'm good to go. I want to go." Now he's saying like, "Oh, it feels better, but I'm not where I want to be." I'm just kind of confused by that. I hope he plays, but I hope he's healthy. Jackson didn't practice, not worried about that. He's probably not going to practice on Wednesdays for the rest of the year. But it's going to... Man. It just sucks. It's going to be on so much reliant on the running game, especially if Thad Lewis doesn't play. And you got a banged up Fred Jackson, but he's a warrior and he'll be out there. You got a banged up Spiller. We don't know if they're going to let him play. And it's just the game. Can we just agree that the game does not? It's not really winnable if Jeff Tuel or Matt Flynn's the quarterback. There's my point. The game is not winnable if they're out there. The game is winnable, in my opinion, with Thad Lewis because for some reason he gets the intermediate passing game. He knows what to do. He can throw it long. He can throw it middle. He can throw screens. It's not all the time. I was going to say it's inconsistent because once in a while, and you saw it against the Saints, he just lets one sail. Or, just fires one down the seam and just misses completely. And you just know one of these times the safety is going to be there. And it happened. Keenan Lewis got him. I don't know if he underthrew Goodwin or overthrew, maybe it was Graham. I think he underthrew Goodwin and overthrew somebody else. It might have been Chandler or something. I don't know what the play was there, but it was just a poor throw. He still holds on to the ball too long in the pocket sometimes, but that said, right now, he gives the Bills the best chance to win because the defense is still playing pretty well. I know they allowed 300 yards with 5 passing touchdowns to Breeze. Didn't even feel like he was really playing that well, but he was. He got sacked a couple times. They caught Jerry Hughes in coverage against a wide receiver. That sucked. I was impressed with a little bit by Nickel Roby, despite the fact that Stills caught that touchdown on him. I still thought he played pretty well, even though he was in coverage on Lance Moore on the first touchdown as well. That was really good coverage. Not good enough against an elite Super Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback like Drew Brees. Gilmore's playing out the club. That's nice to see. Mario got a sack. Jerry Hughes got in there for a sack. As long as he's not matched up against receivers, he plays all right. Alonzo, not great. Jimmy Graham still scored 2 touchdowns, even though he only had 1 foot. And he only played in the red zone, so that explains that. Bird, I still think, is playing pretty well. I don't know if he's playing to $9 million a year status. I think he's playing pretty well. He has quarterback's attention back there. I'll say that. it doesn't really fall on the defense this past week. I mean, they bailed the offense out a couple times. They held the field goals. They missed some field goals. The offense put them in bad spots with those fumbles, and the defense was getting them out of there, getting sacks, forcing 3-and-outs. You can only hold on for so long against Drew Brees. That's really the way I see it. He might be a different quarterback on the road, but at home they're on another level, totally on another level. Back to the Chiefs, because that's the task at hand. We talked about the quarterback. We talked about the running back. The defense has got to be stout again. I don't think anybody would disagree with that statement. Mario's got to be disruptive. Kyle, Marcel, they have to be disruptive. They have to get to Alex Smith to force him to make mistakes, because Alex Smith is a game manager. The definition of game manager, bang, you think Alex Smith. You have to, because he doesn't take risks. He will probably not throw the ball in the tight windows. He won't throw the ball in the tight windows, really, because it's too much of a risk. He will take the safe play every time, and that's a lot of times dumping it off to Jamal Charles and finding Dexter McCluster and easy routes. And that's where a lot of the problems the Bills have had defensively at certain points is covering the running back. They did a great job on Sproles. Sproles was ineffective last week. So they have to be aware of that, though. Jamal Charles is a great pass-catching running back out of the backfield. Great. But if, he gets hurt or something, I don't want him to. I don't want Jamal Charles to get hurt. But, if he were to get hurt, they really have nobody behind him, and then it sort of falls on Alex Smith. So the run defense has to be great. Alonzo has to be better. I think the last year when the Bills played the Chiefs, Jamal Charles had like 6 yards rushing or something like that. That's the kind of performance they need on the run D. I know the quarterback is different. The coach is different. It's not Matt Castle. It's Andy Reid and Alex Smith, who are better players, undoubtedly. So it's a better scheme offensively. The players are buying into it. They're undefeated. It works, but they're not blowing any teams out. They're winning they just barely beat the Browns by 6, and the Browns gave them that game by fumbling away a punt. They barely beat the Cowboys at home. They got the Broncos coming up 2 out of 3 weeks after the bye. Maybe they're thinking ahead to that. Like I said, they're not killing teams. So, but coming into Buffalo, I think the Bills have a good chance to compete and take this team to the edge. Does that mean they're going to beat them? No. I don't know that. I'll make a prediction in a minute, but I just want to clarify that, my train of thought there. They certainly have the opportunity. This is a great opportunity for the Bills to be on a huge stage, not necessarily at Ralph Wilson Stadium, but against an undefeated. So people are watching that because the Chiefs are undefeated. People are keeping an eye on that, even if they're not watching the game out of market. They're thinking, the Chiefs, undefeated Chiefs. The Bills can sort of take some of that spotlight. They can grab it with their backup quarterback, with a relatively unknown team, despite the fact that we know how talented they are. They're relatively unknown. It's like, they have E.J. Manuel and Spiller and Jackson and, Mario Williams. That's pretty much the extent, I would say, of the national knowledge regarding the Bills. So, let's go out and get it. Thad Lewis plays, obviously needs to be effective. They need to take some deep shots again to keep him honest. Get Jackson the ball more often. Work in Stevie Johnson. I don't care if he's hobbled. He wants to play. Let him play, because he played like a warrior with that leg. I know he wasn't hurting his team. He was out there and he wasn't hurting his team. He was out there hurt and benefiting the team, I thought. So kudos to him. They got to get Chandler involved. They got to watch for Justin Houston and Tom Bahali coming around. Protection has to be key. On point, that protection. I know the offensive line probably looking forward to that task, but they have to be on point. Like I already touched defensively what they have to do. try to make Alex Smith make a mistake, which is rarely what he ever does, because he is smart with the football. Never ever will be the best quarterback in the NFL. Never ever. Doesn't need to be. Doesn't want to be. It works when he isn't. So the formula would be in the Chiefs, obviously score more points. But in order to do that, you might have to force some turnovers, which they don't tend to do. You have to watch out for Justin Houston, who gets into the backfield, and Tom Holly. They get into the backfield, and they're disruptive. You have to get them out of their element. Make them do something they're not comfortable doing. Because they've done the same things for 8 games. They've played at the level of their opponent. They've beat them, except Jacksonville, but that doesn't count. They've played at the level of their opponent and beaten them late without making mistakes, staying in their comfort zone. Running the ball with Charles, getting it to him out of the backfield, throwing to tight ends who nobody's ever heard of, like Fasano and some fullback Sherman and McGrath, and they still have Dwayne Bowe. He only had 1 catch last week. Donnie Avery seems to be emerging as a favorite target for Alex Smith, but these aren't blockbuster names other than Jamal Charles. The Bills have more blockbuster names on defense. So I'm going to hope that the home field crowd, the whiteout, the atmosphere will give the Bills the advantage. That said, I'm not going to pick the Bills to win. I think they can. I don't think they will, especially with the uncertainty at quarterback. Right now, I can't. It's Wednesday when I'm making this video. I can't pick the Bills to win the game because I don't know who's playing quarterback. Maybe I should have waited to make this video, but I wanted to get it out there. I still think Thad Lewis will play. I don't know he will play. That's why I can't pick the Bills to win. Even if he plays, I think that the pressure applied by the Chiefs' defense, Derek Johnson, like I said, I already touched on Tom Ali and Justin Houston. Eric Berry's still back there, Brandon Flowers. They're good. They're good. So, with that, I'm going to pick the Bills to lose to the Chiefs at home on the whiteout by the score. It's going to be close. I can't see them getting blown out. I know I brought up the whole point about them getting blown out before because everyone thinks this is possible. Because it is possible. But it would be so Bills for them to go out there and get blown out. I don't think they're going to, because the Chiefs don't do that to you. I think the Chiefs will beat the Bills by something of the tune of 23-20. Something like that. Anyway, guys, a little bit longer of a video this week. I hope I didn't repeat myself too much. I know I did a little bit, but it happens in 18 minutes. Nonetheless, I want to thank you all for coming this far. Follow me on Twitter. It's the same as my YouTube handle. And most of all, beat the Chiefs.